Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women and Longevity webinar with Vantage Point Financial. My name is Julie, and I have the pleasure of kicking off today's conversation, as well as introducing the ladies that will help me lead today's presentation. Sophie is a financial advisor at Vantage Point. She graduated from North Central in 3 years, and her passion is helping clients understand their financial plans. I'm also joined by Naomi. She's our client services manager. She's been with Vantage Point for 3 years, and she directs the Elevated Community Impact organization, which is our philanthropy arm here at Vantage Point. We partner with local organizations through volunteerism, advocacy, and donations.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Julie. Good morning, ladies. It's great to be here with you. I want to take a moment and introduce our third co-host, Julie Roberts. Julie specializes in building relationships as a business development specialist here at Vantage Point in our Chicago and St. Louis offices. Julie started her diverse career over on the East Coast and has been with our team for about 6 months now. Her background in business development, operations, and client service span across finance, fitness, and the healthcare industries. Julie is a scheduling expert and a wonderful colleague, and I'm excited to pass it back to her to kick us off this morning.
Thanks, Naomi. So today we're going to be talking through the financial reality for women, our financial life stages. We're going to go over income planning and investment strategy, as well as how to prepare for life transitions and healthcare longevity. We'll finish up with tips for staying organized and engaged and go over the Vantage Point financial approach before getting into our Q&A. For our clients joining us today is an opportunity to revisit your plan through the lens of longevity. You may hear familiar concepts framed in a new way as we connect them to living longer and planning further. And if you're joining us for the first time, this is a chance to see how structured planning first conversations unfold and how a long-term strategy comes together. When we think about planning for decades ahead, uncertainty is natural. Research reveals that only 4 in 10 women feel confident about achieving their financial goals. This remains constant regardless of age, income, and assets. That's why we designed this conversation specifically to be practical and approachable wherever you are in your financial journey. While women tend to live 5 to 6 years longer, and approximately half of all households are headed by women, only 29% feel poised to tackle the complexities of retirement and investing. Like anything else, taking financial leadership is a skill that can grow with attention and practice by understanding your plan, asking questions, and staying connected to your goals. When women engage with their finances, powerful decisions follow. To set the stage for today's conversation, take a moment and think about the last financial conversation you had or decision you had to make. How did it feel? Complicated? Uncertain? Maybe even empowering? Today is about acknowledging the feelings we have about money and increasing clarity in ever more uncertain times. Once we give ourselves permission to step into financial leadership, the next question becomes, what does a longer life actually mean for our finances? Sophia is going to guide us through that next.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Once we begin thinking about financial leadership, the next question naturally becomes, what does living longer actually mean for our finances? Longevity is not just a statistic, it really changes and alters the structure of retirement. So let's start with the facts, and Julie did a great job highlighting this as well. On average, women are living 5 to 6 years longer than men. Why do we outlive men? Maybe because we're more likely to go to the doctor when something hurts. Or maybe because we've developed some strong patience skills. All kidding aside, while that doesn't sound very dramatic at first, over the course of retirement, that difference is significant. It means more years of needing income, more years exposed to inflation, and more years having to navigate healthcare decisions. Here's another important reality. 90% of women will be solely responsible for their finances at some point in their lives, whether that's through widowhood, divorce, or by choice. So even if you are not the primary financial decision maker today, Statistically, there is a strong chance you will be one day. Now, this isn't meant to create fear, it's meant to create awareness. Longevity itself is not a problem. In fact, it's really a blessing, but the real risk is being unprepared for it. So, when we talk about living longer, we have to translate that into financial terms. It means you're going to experience multiple market cycles in retirement. Maybe not just one downturn, but potentially several. It means healthcare becomes a bigger part of your financial picture over time. And in many cases, it means navigating at least part of retirement independently. Now, longevity increases responsibility, but it's also increasing opportunity. And that's why our planning needs to evolve with it. Now, longevity increases the number of financial decisions that we must make over our lifetime. So, if retirement is lasting 25, 30, or even 40 years, that is multiple decades of income distribution decisions, investment adjustments, tax planning, healthcare considerations, and legacy conversations. So, the longer our time horizon is within retirement, the more important engagement with our financial planning becomes. Where we sometimes see that risk developing is in passive planning. And passive planning looks something like setting and forgetting a retirement date, choosing your investments once or twice, and kind of letting things run without a structured review. But over a multi-decade span of retirement, that drift is what creates vulnerability and risk. We know that markets change. We know tax laws change. And we definitely know that healthcare costs change significantly. And life circumstances change as well. But engaged planning, on the other hand, evolves with us. It asks, is my income still sustainable? Is my investment strategy aligned with where I am now? Are we adjusting this proactively? So when we look at long retirements, again, these major risks tend to show up frequently. Longevity risk, which is the possibility of outliving your assets. Inflation risk, even modest inflation, can erode purchasing power significantly over 20, 30, 40 years. Healthcare risk, including long-term care, these costs are typically underestimated and rarely short-term. And lastly, market volatility. Retirement is not 5 years. Again, it can span multiple economic cycles. But as you all know, none of these risks are new. But what's different is our time horizon. So again, the longer the horizon, the more strategic we have to be. And strategy should feel empowering to us, not intimidating.
One helpful way we can think about longevity planning is through something we call the money cycle. While everyone's financial journey is unique, most people tend to move through three main financial phases over time. The first phase is the accumulation phase. This usually begins when you're young and start working. It's the phase where you're building your wealth. The mindset during this phase is pretty simple: save, save, save. Typically, this is when income starts to grow, debt is being paid down, retirement savings are getting started, and many people start to focus on building careers and building families. Because the accumulation focuses on long term growth, we typically see a more aggressive investment strategy since time is on your side. The second phase is the preservation phase. Now, this is key and often overlooked. Many people assume that their financial lives move directly from accumulation to distribution. But in reality, there's often this middle stage where the focus begins to shift. Instead of asking, how do I grow my wealth as quickly as possible? The question shifts to, how do I protect what I've built so it lasts as long as possible? This phase often brings around this phase often begins around the start of retirement, or in the years leading into retirement. For some people, this phase often includes some part-time work, maybe consulting, or even a side hustle. Income may still be coming in, but the mindset has begun to change. In the preservation phase, we often see a slightly more conservative investment strategy because protecting a portion of what you've built becomes just as important as continued growth. The third and final phase is the distribution phase. This is where you begin paying yourself from what you've saved. Your retirement accounts, Social Security, and other income sources begin to support your day-to-day lifestyle. Think of this as the point where the money you spent years saving and building, now begins working for you just in a different way. Instead of contributing to your savings, you're now drawing from those savings to create your income. This is also where longevity planning becomes incredibly important. The question is no longer how much have I saved? The question becomes how do I make what I have last? Now, this framework is really helpful because life rarely moves through we rarely move through life in a predictable way. And for many women, the path through these phases can look very different. Careers may pause for caregiving, income may fluctuate, women may step into financial leadership later in life due to divorce or widowhood. Some women return to the workforce after being away for a while, and others become primary breadwinners for their families. This is why one of the most important messages we can share with women is there is no single financial timeline. Financial leadership does not mean following a perfect sequence of milestones. It means understanding where you are today and making decisions that support the next stage of your life. One thing we frequently see is that transitions don't just change your finances, they impact your confidence. A promotion might bring in more income, but it can also bring more complexity. A divorce may require learning financial systems that someone else used to manage. Or losing a spouse can mean suddenly managing every financial decision on your own. In those moments, financial planning becomes less about the spreadsheets and the numbers and more about continued learning, clarity, and confidence. Confidence with money does not come from knowing everything. It grows through understanding your plan, asking good questions, and continuing to build your knowledge over time. Knowing this, a powerful question women can ask themselves is, does my financial plan reflect the season of life I'm in today? Because if life has changed, and we know it will, your plan should also be evolving with it. No matter what season of life you're in, one of the most common questions women ask is, will my money last? Sophia's going to walk us through how income planning helps us answer that question.
Okay. So we'll get into income planning and understanding the investments, but first I really want to highlight some important statistics. Studies show that a significant majority of women are already organized with their day-to-day finances. 92% of women are confident paying bills and 87% managing budgets, though only about half feel confident in investing or long-term planning. So, my takeaway from this is women already have the skill set to understand these topics, even if they may seem intimidating at times. According to Allianz, half of women also consider themselves to be the household CFO. So it's really important for us at Vantage Point to help you women out there feel confident in all areas of your financial plan, again, because you already have the skill set to do so. So, when it comes to financial planning, it's obviously not about predicting the future perfectly, but we need to build in flexibility to our plans. So, let's ask ourselves, do I have income sources that are durable? Is my investment allocation aligned with a long retirement? Have I considered a tax efficiency over time, not just this year? Do I have a strategy for my healthcare costs? And are my legacy goals reflected into my plan? Now, I want each woman to think about these questions more personally and to reflect. Do you know how long your assets are projected to last? Do you know where your income is going to come from 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Do you know how healthcare fits into your financial picture? Is your estate plan up to date? And most importantly, do you feel confident in your strategy and your financial plan today? If the answer to any of these questions is, I'm not sure, that's not a sign of failure. That's simply an opportunity to engage with your plan. Engagement is financial leadership for women. Now, the $1,000,000 question, will my money last? Income planning is very different than investment selection, but they correlate heavily. Investments grow our assets, and income planning organizes how these assets are distributed, taxed, and sustained over time. So when we build an income strategy, we have to look at how multiple sources are going to work together. That includes Social Security, investment accounts, retirement accounts, pensions if you have one, and cash reserves. Each of these sources behave differently, and each of them are taxed differently, and that should be coordinated well within every financial plan. Social Security in particular is a very strategic decision, especially for women. Because women live longer, claiming decisions can significantly impact lifetime income. Waiting longer can potentially increase monthly benefits permanently for women. But the right decision depends on health, marital status, and other income sources, as well as longevity expectations. There is not a one size fits all answer. There's only a coordinated strategy here. So things like Social Security and the timing of that really have to balance the emotional side of what feels good to us and also a little bit of the number side of what makes sense logically. And again, it depends on each and everyone's situation. Now let's talk about investments because this is often where a lot of fear shows up, particularly for women. Now, risk is commonly defined as volatility, but in planning, risk is actually the possibility of not meeting your goals. Volatility can be very uncomfortable, but running out of income in retirement is catastrophic. So when we design investment strategies, we have to focus on a few key areas: diversification, time horizon alignment, income sustainability, and behavioral discipline. You don't need to be the ones to have to choose your individual investments. You just have to understand the strategy behind them and why they're in place. So when you understand how your investments are supporting your income plan, your confidence should increase dramatically. A huge part of our planning is what's called the bucket plan. And if you're a client at Vantage Point, you should absolutely know what this is. It's how we segment money for timeline and purpose. So I'm going to review that now. This is the bucket plan. Again, if you're a client of Vantage Point, this should be a foundational piece to your retirement plan. We have 3 buckets that are segmented again for timeline and purpose. The now bucket is money that is supposed to be safe and liquid. It's things like your checking and your savings account, and it's income you'll need for the next 0 to 12 months. So this money is used to pay your everyday living expenses. It can be a comfort fund, a rainy day fund. And again, it's safe and liquid. It's not typically invested. The soon bucket is your bucket for money that's segmented for 2 to 10 years, and it can be conservative and income focused. So let's say you've just retired and you're living off of your savings account now, but in a couple years, you might need to purchase a car. Well, we don't want you to have to access money in a high growth portfolio if the market's down in 2 years. We want money segmented that's a little bit more conservatively invested so that you can purchase the car you need or you can achieve the goal that you need to in that time frame, and you don't have to worry about the volatility of the market. Lastly, we've got our later bucket. Now, this bucket is for long-term growth and legacy planning. So again, retirement can last anywhere from 25, 30, up to 40 years potentially, maybe even longer. And so we need money that's allocated towards growth so that we're not outliving our assets. This timeline is 10 plus years. So the way that these buckets work together is they kind of all funnel through each other and they can replenish each other over time. It's a really great system, again, to segment our money for timeline and for purpose. Now, I'd also like to encourage every woman on this call to not be afraid to ask your advisor questions that you maybe have been afraid to ask historically. Sometimes it feels like maybe we should already know the answer, or you feel like it's moving backwards, but it's our goal and our job as fiduciaries to make sure that you feel confident with your plan. So if you have questions, even if they may seem silly, even if they may seem like something you should already know, I really do encourage you to ask your advisor because we're always happy to sit down and break down the strategy behind it so that you understand your plan and feel really confident with it. So we've talked about income planning, investments, how they're coordinated, things we have to keep in mind. We even reviewed the bucket plan. And most importantly, we have established that women already have the competence and the knowledge to handle these things. But there's another structural factor that's important to acknowledge when we talk about women planning for a longer life. And that's what we often refer to as the pink tax. Now, despite the name, it is not a government tax, but it refers to the pricing differences that's identified in consumer research where products marketed towards women are often priced higher than similar products marketed towards men. A report from the U.S. Senate Joint Economic Committee found that products marketed to women cost more about 42% of the time, with an average price difference of roughly 7% overall. For personal care products, things like razors or deodorant, that difference can be closer to 13%. Individually, these price differences may seem pretty small, but over decades of everyday purchases, this really adds up. Now, layer on top of that another well-known reality, the gender pay gap. According to data from the US Census Bureau and Bureau of Labor Statistics, women working full-time, on average, still only earn about 82 to 84 cents per every dollar earned by men, and that gap is even wider for women of color. Over a single year, that difference probably doesn't feel very dramatic, but over a 30 to 40-year career, that compounds. That affects things like retirement savings, Social Security benefits, overall lifetime wealth accumulation. Then throw longevity into the equation. Again, women tend to live longer than men, and many also spend time out of the workforce for caregiving, whether that's raising children or caring for aging family members. So when you combine a lifetime earnings gap, the pink tax, potential caregiving interruptions, these higher everyday consumer costs, and an average longer lifespan, you start to see why retirement income planning is especially important for women. This is not about discouragement. This is not about saying we're at a disadvantage, but this is saying we have an opportunity to be really strategic with our planning. This is to create awareness for us because when we understand the structural realities, we're able to build strategies that account for them. And that is really empowering for us women.
While financial planning often focuses on numbers, one of the most important parts of what we do is helping people navigate really big life transitions. We talked about this earlier. Life rarely unfolds exactly the way that we expect. Therefore, there are several main transitions that we see women encounter. Things like divorce and separation, widowhood, becoming the primary financial decision maker, caretaking for aging parents, changes in health, inheritance, and career transitions or changes in retirement timelines. Each of these moments can bring emotional and financial complexities. At some point in life, many women become the primary financial decision maker for themselves and for their households. In fact, a Bank of America study found that 94% of women believe they will personally be responsible for their finances at some point in their lives. Research from the CFP board also shows that women increasingly lead financial decision making within households. At the same time, we've mentioned before, women are living longer than men on average, which means financial plans need to support more years of retirement and more financial decisions over time. These realities are not meant to create fear. They simply highlight why preparation and organization are important and matter. When life changes suddenly, people are often trying to answer questions like, where are the accounts? Who do I call? What paperwork is needed? What decisions need to happen right now? And what decisions can happen later on? People wonder where documents live, what and excuse me, when those answers are not easily accessible, it can add unnecessary stress in an already difficult time. One of the most powerful things we can do is to create clarity for ourselves. That means creating an organized plan now that informs you of where documents are, who to call, who your trusted advisors are, how income flows into your household, what insurance or benefits exist, and what decisions need to happen if life changed unexpectedly. Preparation doesn't eliminate big life transitions, but it can reduce uncertainty when they do happen. Our goal at Vantage Point is to make sure that when transitions happen, whether expectedly or unexpectedly, our clients already know where to turn for information, who to call, and what the next step is. Being prepared gives women confidence during change. Another area that often gets overlooked in longevity planning is healthcare and long-term care decisions. I'm going to pass it back to Sophie to talk us through that.
Thanks, Naomi. Now, Naomi mentioned something very critical, that being prepared reduces stress. One of the most overlooked areas in longevity planning is healthcare. Healthcare costs increase as we age. And because women live longer, these costs often extend further into later years. So planning early preserves our choices later. Without planning, decisions can be very reactive, but with planning, these decisions become intentional. Long-term care conversations can feel very uncomfortable, but at its core, long-term care planning is dignity planning. This ties directly into legacy planning. It's asking, how do I want to be cared for? Where do I want to live? Who do I want to make decisions for me if I cannot? And how are these decisions going to be funded? When we address these questions proactively, we're protecting our autonomy. And this is where financial planning becomes deeply personal. Healthcare planning is not just about the numbers, it really is aligning your financial plan with how you want to live and how you'd like to be supported. Longevity gives us a lot more time, which is a blessing, but healthcare planning ensures that that time remains aligned with our values. When income planning, investment strategy, healthcare planning, legacy planning, tax management, when all of those things work together, then longevity becomes very manageable and really empowering for us. Now, I'd also like to highlight that women spend a lot of their lives caring for other people, children, spouses, parents, siblings, friends. It's an innate feeling, and we as women definitely have this nurturing instinct for other people. But it's time to ask ourselves, how do we want to be taken care of? Longevity planning, healthcare planning, financial planning is self-care. That's what we believe. It is self-care for us to put this into place because we deserve it. Every woman deserves this type of planning.
And because of the deeply personal nature of financial planning, it's important to find ways to engage that feel sustainable and predictable over time, rather than checking in just when things feel chaotic or overwhelming. Studies show that women are more likely to not have a go-to source for financial advice, and 35% of women report not talking to anyone about their finances. But by taking small steps in the right direction, like simply reviewing your income sources, confirming beneficiaries, or updating your estate documents, you can cultivate a long-term peace of mind. For especially complex situations like pre-retirement, business ownership, or particularly volatile markets, meeting with your advisor on a regular basis ensures that as your life changes, your plan is thoughtfully reviewed by both you and your advisor. While studies indicate that nearly 60% of retirees left the workforce sooner than planned, and over 83% of retiree households face unexpected expenses like health emergencies or housing repairs, many retirees also report they either don't attend their annual reviews or their advisors don't initiate them. But these meetings provide opportunities to ask those burning questions about what feels in flux: career transitions, caregiving responsibilities, shifts in your health, possible inheritance, and legacy goals. These can all evolve over time. Understandably, this can feel overwhelming, and this is where it's important to ask your advisors to break things down into manageable pieces so that you can focus on one area at a time. Providing you with clear explanations of each strategic piece of your plan is how strong advisor-client communication can strengthen your financial confidence. And building that advisor-client communication is a two-way street, and it helps to start with how your financial guidance is structured. Only about 26% of advisors truly function as comprehensive financial planners, taking a full picture approach that evaluates your goals, your assets, liabilities, and how each part of your financial life works together. So rather than looking at how portfolios or products perform, or looking at retirement account balances in isolation, it's important to evaluate how each portfolio, product, and account will impact all the pillars of your plan. At Vantage Point, our proprietary planning framework moves through 6 coordinated pillars: your goals and concerns, income planning, investment management, tax management, healthcare and insurance, and legacy planning, because each decision affects the others. And because of that coordination, strategy will determine the tools and products you utilize, not the other way around. This is where your financial leadership comes into play. Long-term confidence grows when your plan is integrated, intentional, and actively managed. That means and includes those proactive reviews, allowing your team to take on adjustments of income, tax exposure, investment positions, healthcare planning. And when you fully understand the structure, new decisions can feel clearer and more confident. If the conversation today sparked questions about your own plan, that's meaningful. We believe financial planning should reflect the realities many women face, and not just mathematically, but personally. Our complimentary advisor-led strategy session is an appointment specifically designed to provide structured clarity and a chance to discuss your top priorities, identify gaps, and get any nitty-gritty questions answered that may be percolating after today's conversation. We invite you today to step into financial leadership and schedule one conversation with us or with your current advisor that can bring meaningful direction. And for the women that we already have the pleasure of serving, we hope today was an affirmation that financial leadership is not a one-time decision. It's an ongoing practice. You do not have to have every answer on your own. But by being willing to ask those deeper questions, engage with your advisor and your plan, and make space to revisit decisions, you can truly step into financial confidence and ownership. We welcome those conversations and are honored to support you in them. Now, before we transition to the Q&A portion of today, I just want to point you towards some of our upcoming events. At Vantage Point, we are committed to serving our friends and neighbors with education and connection. In addition to these webinars, Vantage Point hosts seminar series in conjunction with the Association of Financial Consultants. You can scan that QR code there to take a look and sign up for any of our upcoming offerings. I also want to take a moment to spotlight our upcoming women's only Renew, Relax, Refresh, and Connect event coming in April. The ladies of Vantage Point will be gathering together in Naperville for an afternoon of refreshing activities, good food, and good conversation. If you're interested in more information or getting on the invitation list for that, just be on the lookout for an email to RSVP soon, as spots will be limited.
Okay, we welcome anyone on the call today. Feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions. We'll stay on for a few minutes. This is a chance to ask, any questions about our upcoming events or about things that we've talked about. So we welcome any questions if you have them. We'll stay on for questions if there are any, but I'll let Naomi kind of close us out here. We'll stay on for a few minutes after as well.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for your time today. We hope you learned a lot, and we hope that you found this conversation inspiring. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. So if you have no questions, feel free to hop off. And if you do, we are excited to continue the conversation. Have a great day, everyone.
Oh, it looks like we do have a question that came in. Any other ways I can connect with other women in the Vantage Point community? That's a really awesome question. I strongly encourage you to come to our women's event in Naperville if you can. Feel free to send us a message. It says anonymous here, so feel free to send us a message personally, after this conversation. We're happy to ensure that you get on the invite list. But that's one way to really connect with a lot of the ladies within the community. Naomi or Julie, do you have any other insights?
There's another question that just came through. Any suggestions on women financially planning for career pauses or advice on this in general?
Suggestions on women financially planning for career pauses. Okay, that's a really great question. That's very, very common for women. I would say really make sure that you understand during a time that you pause your career, what does your income look like? Where is it going to come from? Do you feel confident with the investment strategy that you have in place? Do you feel confident with your tax plan? I really encourage you to speak with your advisor about this if you have one, and really make sure that you feel confident in the plan that you have because it's very doable to create a plan that you feel confident with so that you can take the career pause and not have to worry about, what's going to happen with my investments? Am I going to have the income I need to support my lifestyle? You can have that confidence and clarity with your plan. You should be able to and feel empowered to take that career break.
Right.
Any other questions? I'd also like to highlight for the individual that asked other ways to connect with women at Vantage Point. You could still obviously do that outside of our women's event if you're not able to attend. We do a lot of other in-person events for clients, men and women. And so anytime you're able to join one of those, we'd be happy to connect you with other ladies that are part of this community because I think it's important to have meaningful conversations with one another.
I would agree. In addition to some of our community educational events, we also do some client focused events, as Sophie mentioned. And then we also invite some of our clients to get involved in some of our community impact initiatives as well. Our community impact team will be sending out some communications about upcoming events wherein our community can participate. So I would say keep an eye on your emails over the next couple of weeks. We'll be sending out some communications about upcoming events for the summer and the spring.
Thank you again, everyone. If you do not have any questions, feel free to sign off. If you do have any last minute questions, feel free to add them to the chat. Okay, with that, I think we'll close out. And if you do come up with any questions, feel free to reach out to us personally, and we're happy